Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a warm welcome to one and all of you. Today's session is on stress and mental health, and it will be is taken by Dr. Adithya. So, just a few words on Dr. Adithya. Dr. Adithya Hande has completed his degree in Naturopathy and Yoga from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Karnataka, Bangalore. He has worked in SDM Hospital of Yoga and Naturopathy and Shatayu Ayurveda and Yoga Retreat Center. He has conducted many corporate yoga classes, customized yoga therapy sessions, and also yoga show in the news channels. He has worked as a junior research fellow in Yesvyasa University, Bangalore. He is an expert in acupuncture, hydrotherapy, nutrition, and manipulative therapy. He has won many yoga competitions and also was a lead trainer in the Guinness World Record event conducted for the largest yoga class in Karnataka state in 2013. Now he is with us in Ishka Healthcare, HSR Layout, Bangalore, as naturopathy and yoga consultant. Welcome, doctor, to the session. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Joby, for that wonderful introduction. So, today we will be talking more on mental health. Today we'll be talking on the importance of yoga as such and naturopathy as such on mental health, because we believe that it is not just body happens to be in a diseased matter or in a disease state. There are many reasons. So as we go by, we'll try to understand the reasons for the same, and we'll try to look at the other possibilities in how the body and how the mind actually works an environment such as today's lockdown situations and today's way of competitiveness. Okay, so what is mental health? So basically, anything which is psychologically and absence of any kind of a mental illness is what we call as mental health. The reason why we have to think about psychological prospect is because of psychology or because of the mind and how it works. It has some of the potential effects on the body as such. So psychological resilience is what we call as an interaction between the activities of the mind and the activities of the body, where we actually even talk about life as such. So the activity is the reason why we are heading towards some of the life, the way it works, the functions of this life, and try to understand the meaning of the life as such. So once we try to understand this body, mind, and itself, then slowly we can understand what the health or what the mental health is all about. So what happens when something happens to you is you can feel these kind of developments, like you start feeling sad to some issues, your concentration reduces when you're more focused onto other issues. There's a lot of confusion which builds up in your mind, and there is extreme mood changes when this happens. And also because of which you have fears, you have anxiety, you have worries, and you tend to withdraw from these activities because you're focused onto something else. At the same time, you have delusions, which is a more increased amount of psychological pressure to your mind as such. So also, what are the chances for you to get this mental disorders is most of a stressful situation. Monday morning 9 o'clock when you get up to work, that itself makes you feel that you are reduced one of your Sundays. So instead of looking at the Sunday which is coming the next week, we always start brooding about the Sundays which is always lost. So we like to enjoy ourselves in the comfort of not being interrupted our flow of thoughts or our flow of activity as such. So this leads to stress. So these kind of stresses on a repeated factor will aggravate your way of thinking pattern, will aggravate the level the body, and its psychological impact, that is chemical in nature, will impact your system. That can lead to brain damages, that can lead to some of the experiences which you go through, like PTSD, which is commonly seen in post-war or during the war situation, post-traumatic stressful disorders, where the army battalion tries to feel very much insecure on their compatibilities later. We tend to get on to with this with alcohols and recreational drugs to overcome this. We'll be talking about it a few moments later. And we have a history of abuse like that of alcohol and other. The causes can be environmental exposure, it can be brain chemical matter, it can also be inherited traits of the body as such. So when we look at this, what exactly is the physical aspect of the body and what exactly is the psychological aspect of the body? There are two things, if you can see the chart. So from the signs of distress, what it happens is slowly the body withdraws itself to get into shutting down moment where you try to isolate yourself, and the growth suddenly stops to decrease because of some of the chemical nature of the body. So this can lead to extreme distresses. So from optimum functioning, slowly it can take into either right or the left side, and you try to understand what is the reason why you are having this problem. So that is the reason why we say optimal functioning of the body is more important. The same window of rainbow we will be talking in a bit more later in the form of yoga, how yoga thinks about these things and what is exactly cause of it. What happens when the stresses are affecting to your body is something which we call as psychosomatic diseases. So when there are a lot of psychosomatic ailments today, as we see, like that of hypertension, that of asthma, that of stresses which induces other body problems. So stress is actually a good part of the body. Let's say stress actually makes you work better, it makes you more efficient. They feel more able to, in a competitive spirit, it gives you a boost of cortisol that will make sure that your body reacts well and you reach to your, let's say, the goal will be achieved faster. But every time you keep up the same phase of stress in a longer duration, that leads to a bad implication. So here I'm trying to shorten up what exactly is a short-term stress and long-term stress. And short-term stress, you can always see that your mind is more focused on to the things which you prioritize accordingly. On a longer term, this prioritization is what leads to more headache, more migraine, and other different kinds of diseases or disorders in your mind, which will probably even be a cause for, let's say, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. They are one of the causes why overthinking or underthinking or too much of stress can also lead in some of the problems in your mind. Your heart rate increases, just to see to it that the oxygenation happens across the body completely, and that can lead to serious heart problems on a longer duration, where we have something called as arrhythmias. Breathing problem can also take place because in a short term, if it is a competition of a 100-meter dash, you need oxygen so that body works efficiently. But on a longer problems or on a longer duration of these oxygenation, your tidal volume as such though increases, but your lungs face a lot of shortfalls. So your breathing capacity changes, and because of which a lot of internal stimuluses and internal way of handling the body chemicals hampers. Also your digestion gets hampered, though good for a short term. On a longer term, you have irritable bowel syndrome. Your so-called sexual activity also reduces, which is a very symptom for psychological ailments as such. Your muscles become sore, you tend to feel more lethargic. There's something called as chronic fatigue syndrome, which happens on a long term of a psychological or a psychosomatic ailments as such. So based on these things, what we can come to telling is there is something which is actually giving you information about what exactly body is doing and what exactly it should not do. Based on that, we have something called as neurotransmitters. So these are the chemical bound compounds which are actually communicating with around your organs, around your other joints and everything to take control of. Though they're not under our control, but yes, some of them, there are probably more than 100 different types of neurotransmitters, but we are focusing on these neurotransmitters as such because this is more impactful on your mind as such. So there are two types, probably three types. One is excitatory, which means that they give more stimulative responses. Inhibitory, which reduces the stimulations, and accordingly they have functions. So you can see Alzheimer's disease is one of the reasons why you have a problem in deficit of acetylcholine. Similarly, you can see insomnia, which is a very common disease. If you're not getting sleep, that means that the GABA, that is gamma aminobutyric acid, is less in your body. Similarly, there are many things which these neurotransmitters can actually hold a lot of things. Some of them are natural, which you can get it through food. Some of them which are already present in your body. So only the reason is how well they function onto your system and what it makes a big difference and impact in your system as such. So, as a naturopathic perspective or as a yogic perspective, what exactly are we talking about? Or how does yoga naturopathy fits into mental health? We have something which the World Health Organization defines as health. Health is not just an abstinence of or absence of a disease. It's complete physical, mental, social, spiritual, and psychological well-being as such. So spiritual is also included in WHO's definition, the latest definition as such. The same thing is what we see in Panchakosha theory. Panchakosha, as the name suggests, Pancha is 5, Kosha is the layers. So Panchakosha is basically the 5 layers of a human existence. So starts from Annamaya. As you can see, the Anna is called as food. So anything which is physical in nature transforms to Annamaya Kosha. If that is good, then that can work if there is a Pranamaya Kosha. Like I said in the previous uh, lecture or previous talk about pranayama, how breath can be more influential in making your system more susceptible to its existence. Pranamaya kosha, if it is well enough, it can lead to a lot of goodness in the system. So similarly, Manomaya Kosha, when there is body, when there is breath, then obviously the mind gets involved in seeing to it that it has a very good functioning. So there is one physical aspect of body, which is, let's say, food, another physical aspect of the body, which is mind, which is prana. And the combination of these two to have in a better way is the reason why we have Manomaya. It is like engine oil in a mechanics of the car. But for this Manomaya Kosha to function, to exist in putting that into forward momentum, we need something called as Jnana. Jnana is nothing but the intellect or the knowledge behind functioning of these three elements together. When this comes into existence, slowly there is a movement which is in a very progressive state. That is what we call as Anandamaya Kosha. So Anandamaya is the entire way of driving a car in a free highway. But for that, you need to have Vijnanamaya, understanding the use of clutch, brake, accelerator, and the knowledge of the road signs and symbols. Same time, Manomaya, to make sure that everything is available, that is petrol, oil, and other things. Pranamaya is the seat of it to make sure that the driving skills or the steering wheel as such is there to make that into transformation. Annamaya is the car itself. So basically, the entire body has to work so that you can enjoy the car, is the reason why we have to bring down to such called as Panchakosha theory. Also, they talk about Purusharthas, or the way the body should work, or the way the human being should work. It is given in 4 different kinds, that is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma being doing things that way it should be done. It is not that whether it is right or wrong, but ultimately it is getting things done. Artha is the reasoning behind it. Kama is not just the sexuality behind it, it's also the importance of emotions being played in the reason why you do it. See, in any court cases as such, it's the only how the case has been debated upon gets to win the case. So it's like how well you put your intellect into getting things done, how well you have made sure that you get the cases done well is the reason why you get a very good case. When that happens, then you get into something called as moksha, that is nothing but anandamaya kosha. That is, you are happy to make sure that all these 3 things are working together. Similarly, when it has to be done. So we talked about what is it, and we have talked about how it is, and now we are talking when it is. So when is basically again Chatur Ashrama, Ashrama being the stages of life. So we have Brahmacharya, where you're trying to grab knowledge as much as possible, which is less than 27 years of age. Grihastha, when you're trying to put that into your experiential mode, or where you're learned and then you're putting into experiential way. So it is 27 to 54. Then Vanaprastha, when you're trying to put these two, experience and knowledge, for the purpose of people around you, where they try to understand your knowledge and then they try to overwhelmingly use those knowledge for their benefit. And then Sannyasa, where you have no bond of any kind of these things with the society as such. I mean, yes, it is too vague for me to tell in this point, but the yoga has a perspective of understanding what is the reason why we are supposed to do it in a certain way. Slowly we'll come back to that understanding as well. Then it says why the diseases should come to your body, or what can be wrong because of this disease. So it again talks about pancha kleshas, as Patanjali, the person who has orated about this yoga as such, talks about these 5 elements because of which you can get into troubles. First and foremost is avidya, which talks about ignorance of a object or ignorance in any subject. So we try to be masters in our subject, but if we give something else, we try to come up with answer, but getting that not knowing and try to recollect it more gives the problem to the body. That is the reason why ignorance is the first path of learning rather than stepping back. Then we have asmita, which is egoism, not in the bad sense, but egoism is the reason why you actually try to get things done the way you want it. So if I give you a screwdriver, you have to tighten some screws or nuts in your body or in your vicinity as such. Similarly, Asmita gives you an identity to use the tools. Raga is nothing but attachment. As I said, emotions and attachments are required to fulfill our way of doing things. But if it goes to an extent where it can hamper things, then you have some psychological disturbances. And that is the reason why raga, as such, is said as one of the kleshas or one of the disease factors. Then dvesha is, as the English literary transliteration goes by, is aversion or hatred. Too much of an emotional instability leads to aversion. If I'm feeding you even your favorite food, let's say one of the sweets or one of the food particle, if I give you in a regular interval throughout the day, you start getting hatred towards that. You start getting averted towards that. That is the reason why too much of anything leads to dvesha, and slowly it leads to abhinivesha. Abhinivesha is the fear. Then this can put a huge impact in your body. This can put a huge impact on your mind. So this is the reason why the mind also becomes a very important aspect, because mind, as you see, is just one entity, but yoga differentiates between four different practices, although, or four different factors, or four different places, or four different sections. Buddhi being the intellect, where the seat of intelligence works. Ahankara, as I said before, is egoism, the way you use this as an identity to use your knowledge. Manas is the memories and how you were supposed to use this. So once you have already taught the first standard, you slowly raise up to the 10th grade, 12th grade, finish off your college, and then you don't go back to use those words again. So what you have knowledge, you put it into perspective and get it done. That leads to chitta again, which is there is nothing. You just use your conscious way of doing things, and where there's unconscious bound, which is pushing this to happen. This is what happens even in scientific community when we see there is a lot of mind-body relation. So these things will basically be how yoga defines itself. But when the science, modern science talks about is the gut feeling. You must have, these are the recent thing which has come into the existence. Gut feeling is not just in saying of an English colonial language, but gut feeling is also because there are certain bacteria which can affect your mood. We believe that if you eat a lot of curds, it tends to make you more drowsy, it tends to make you more lethargic. So similarly, there are a lot of other foods because of which your mind can lose its focus, it can lose its foundation of being things or getting things together. Then the food factors, as I said, food is a very important part. As Naturopathy and Ayurveda, also yoga defines food basis on different kinds of its taste, if its smell, and its features. So the food also can have a large implication on your body and also social norms. So basically, all these things are one of the reasons for your betterment of your mental health. So I try to explain an entirety of yoga. This is not, I mean, this cannot be the ultimate source of yoga or ultimate understanding of yoga, but definitely these are the practical ways in which you can get through your mental health without much of a technical support. So there are obviously problems in the mind. So let me tell you a story of how things happen. There is a story which can be seen in our hippie movement during the 1990s, when people used to take up cannabis or marijuana and feel a lighted head. So there was a research which went on to look at what exactly happens in these people who themselves call them as hipsters and people who are meditativeness, because both of them show that they have actually left the world, they have left the relationship between the people, they just want to keep with them isolated without much of a thing. So they found out that if you are inhaling marijuana, if you are inhaling cannabis, there are certain receptors in the brain which are prone towards getting this marijuana kick. So basically, what happens is if you meditate the same time, or on the other hand, if you even take marijuana, you have a same kind of an ambience created in your brain. So that receptor was not known before, and that is the reason why they said it as anandamide. So like that, they came up with many other neurotransmitter receptors which kept on to gluing what exactly is it available in the body and how it transpires itself into the system. So what happens is, if you try to look at in the perspective of what exactly is a chemical reaction which is happening in your system, body is generating thoughts and emotions against itself. So you think of something that is actually hampering your own self. Because if you say, I have a problem with the person who is with me, I have a problem with the person who is around me, and basically you are the one who is actually creating some of the chemical reactions in your body. Even if you ignore it, it's sometimes being more kind of a problematic for your situation as such. So they are actually generated by your own body, it's self created, and you think that this is the right way of getting into it. For example, let's take an example of being anger. When you are more angry, thoughts tend to be more towards directed towards one person. you know Anger comes because one of your person who you love is not listening to you. So once that happens, the anger rush comes in and you tend to take steps in a very drastic way, because of which, though the person has done good, though the person has done bad, you only focus on to that situations which leads or which infuses this anger as such. Then what happens is you try to build up a environment of debate or argument around that person that can lead to a distress in your system, and that can hamper your thoughts and emotions. At the same time, this can also be seen in all our day-to-day activity. Basically, we have a competition with the society, we have a competition with people around us. you know when we were very young, our parents used to say, get the first rank in the college, get the first rank in the school, get the first rank in the class. So we are always pushed in a competitive spirit. So if you keep on pushing this in a competitive spirit, that puts us in a very stressful situation. Yes, all of us have been made for that kind of a factor, but nobody has said what after the competition. Because once we are put more into stress in the system, that burden cannot be handled by many of the people. Today in India, every one in every six person has some kind of a mental problem. It's because of this parental issues also. At the same time, it's also because of many of the other issues like peers and friends who are getting good marks, you feel kind of left out. So that also creates more of problem in your body as such. Yoga interestingly says that if you are anger on any issue, see to it that you can be in the state of anger for a longer time so that you can achieve things which you can't generally do it. The problem is we get anger for a moment and then we change that anger into something called as irritability. Once that happens, that irritability is what is leading to most of our problems. So yoga specifically says that if you're anger, see to it that you can do it the same way for a longer time. The best person who talks about anger and enlightenment is one of the sages in India, Vishwamitra. So Vishwamitra was very angry and he could get things done more faster. But that uses a lot of body energy, that consumes a lot of body's functions or physiological levels and psychological levels. That is the reason why we become more irritated rather than functioning in our better way. So treatment or management. Well, prevention is obviously better than cure if you're not following any of the yogic way of living. But what can we do? So either you choose naturopathy, yoga, or any other alternative medicine. They have their own way of handling the body, the mind, and its. So yoga talks more about meditation, yoga talks more about relaxation, yoga talks about its diet, yoga talks about contemplation, and many things. But if you see, both of them have very similar in itself. So naturopathy talks about music therapy. So it is widely accepted that when you are very happy, you enjoy the tune. But when you are very sad, you enjoy the lyrics. So similarly, music therapy is something which can suit your mind. It can suit your way of thinking and conscious. So many of the music, especially Mozart K488, which I have been doing research on, it shows that it enhances your so-called concentration, and it makes sure that you can be glued to that kind of a focus for a longer duration than without the music as such. So walking on the grass is also one such way where you can actually relax your body because of something which we believe in, the grounding nature of the body, with obviously with your bare foot, because there are a lot of radicals which are moving in where the skin is getting conducted directly to the ground. So that reduces the stress and increases your immune system. Once that happens, then the muscles tension also reduces, and that will also reduce the free radicals, because if the muscles is more tense, it leads to lactic acid buildup. That also goes down if you're just barefoot walking on the grass. Keep yourself hydrated. No matter what, no matter how, you might not feel thirsty, but hydration is very important thing, because 24 hours of the day, probably all the other organs can be hampered or it can take up its own time to get back into normal, but your brain is not going to do that. You need brain a very important it's a very important organ because it keeps on functioning for a longer duration of the time. And also socialization. Well, very wrong time to talk about socialization though, but always you can pick up to our videos, you can also pick up to people around you, you can also talk to the relatives which were talking for a long time. You can also come to people who are actually, friends who have lost contact in the past few days. So don't take anything in a negative situation as such. Try to overbuild with some new kind of a technique. The best way to see to it that you don't get into Alzheimer's, you don't get into Parkinson, there are many research studies which says that you can actually do something like learning a new skill. When we say learning a new skill, you can start doing painting, you can start doing poetry, you can start doing new skills of instruments. So flute, keyboard, guitar, anything. If you could do it in a very early age, and slowly that will transform, creating a new pathway for your nerves to build, and that helps in regeneration of your brain cells or nerve cells, which we call as neuroplasticity. So based on these things, you can see that meditation has a lot of things. So first, enjoy yourself. Whatever happens, rather than managing it, try to overcome it. Enjoy the way you have been doing things. Organize your skills. Eat a lot of food which are balanced in nature. Don't hop on to junk food. Plan your leisure activity, which is very important. In a very 5 minutes of a complete setting in front of a computer, see to it that you get up and do some physical activity. Exercise is a very important aspect in mental health because exercise keeps you more focused. It makes you feel more, let's say, tensed down. At the same time, breathing techniques and positive thoughts can also make sure that you can do your things better. So yes, these are the few things which we are actually looking for. We are open for questions. Any questions you can always drop on to the chat bar, and also you can unmute yourself and talk to us. More important in any of our way of dealing with mental illness is you see to it that you talk to any of your people first. Socialization, if it becomes on a greater scale, obviously you feel better. So you don't feel that lockdown, though you are physically, you are mentally, you need not be locked down. So you can either start creating new skills for yourself, either you can start creating new things for yourself, start learning a new skills, start doing new way of doing work. Same time, socialization will also help us. So you can always visit us at the website. We'll be having all these things available. You can also consult us. At the same time, you can be tuned in for more of our programs. And also this coming Saturday, we have Dr. Joby talking on infertility. And in coming weeks, we'll be having more of a treatment package. We'll be focusing on to your needs and your necessities. Today, we are just doing so that we can understand what exactly you're going through. But yes, we can always talk about our packages. Okay, we can always talk about what you need, and we can get that things done in naturopathy, yoga, and Ayurveda. Yes. Any questions?
Thank you, Doctor. It was a really wonderful session. I would just like to add for our listeners that sleep also matters. Please do sleep regularly with at least 7 to 8 hours of rest in the night. Sleep early and get up early, because that calms down the mind and makes our brain functions ready for another new day. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You can always put your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask questions. Doctor, if you can just talk about, a little yoga and naturopathy treatments that we do for stress.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of treatments in naturopathy and in yoga, as such. As I said, music therapy is one such. There are a lot of musics which are available online for your. I mean, a lot of musics which you can use for your mental health as such. And also, you can do meditation. There are a lot of meditation. According to, if you're anxious, you have a meditation to cool you down. If you are feeling light or kind of low, you can do some of the stimulative meditations also. So You cannot segregate one kind of a treatment, but yes, based on your feeling, we have treatment. Naturopathy more significantly talks on building up socialization. So you go out, you talk to people. There is something called as sunlight therapy or heliotherapy, where you take positively majority of the sun to make sure that you are feel more good. There are based on your hydration, as I said, water is very important for your body. To drink well water, sleep well at the same time. Also, you have to plan your and prioritize your work. That is also more important as a personal thing. You should not let your body make sure that it hampers its physicality as such. When I say physicality is, there has to be a routine which has to be followed. At the same time, there has to be slight changes in your routine. So if you keep on doing the same routine, anything which comes and bumps into it, you feel little lost. That is the reason why I see to it that there is always some kind of an addition and subtraction. That is the reason why I said more about enhancing your skill. Sunday need not be a lazy day. It can be some day of a skill enhancing also. So you see to it that you bring more effective treatment as such, and also you see to it that you bring more skills and understanding for yourself as such. So what happens is once you are getting interested in these activities, slowly your body will function better and you will stop losing focus on your day-to-day activity. So more important is see to it that you have a particular way of doing things. At the same time, you enhance your skill. It's not just short time, but also in a long time, you will not have problem with Alzheimer's, will not have problem with Parkinson's. That is the reason why we focus more on something like Sudoku, word building, and all those things. These are nothing but helping your neuroplasticity. So helping more nerve building, which happens. That is the reason why we ask you to come up with us. If you have any doubts, if you feel low, you can also talk to me, because we all are in the same way of handling things. So you can always talk to us. We will make sure that we are more specific in what kind of things you can do. So if you are more focused on what you're supposed to do, that will be easier for us to take care of you. At the same time, you take care of yourself. So this, I think, since there's no question, uh, if anybody have, you can actually drop the questions. But yes, these are the few things how you can make sure that you can be stress free. Yeah. Anything else, Dr.
Thank you,
Joby?
doctor. Yeah. So thing is, we cannot look at a person and say that he is stressed or depressed.
Yeah.
But yes, seeing to his emotions and sudden changes of uh, behaving. So if you know anybody or in your family, in your neighborhood, you can suggest them, and maybe you can talk to them, because talking and listening helps to reduce stress also. And please, you can recommend them. There are a lot of Ayurvedic treatments also. So thank you very much for the patient listening. Hope to see you again in future for our next sessions. Thank you once again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'll end the session here. Thank you.